The second memorial lecture in honor of the late former governor of Ondo State, Dr. Olusegun Agagu, CON, has been held in Lagos. The event, which took place on Sunday, 13th of September 2015, exactly 2 years after he passed on, brought together important dignitaries at the Civic Center, Victoria Island, Lagos, venue of the event. Important personages in the academia, public service, politics, business, and the private sector areas where Dr. Olusegun Agagu had traversed in all his endeavors in life were in attendance. These were people who either served as governors or ministers in the private sector or the academia with the late Dr. Olusegun Agagu. Some were represented by their spouses. The chairman of the event was former President Olusegun Obasanjo, GCFR, who was represented by Governor Emeritus Prince Olagunsoyin Oyinlola, who delivered former President Olusegun Obasanjo's goodwill message, in which he again reaffirmed his admiration of the excellence the late Governor Olusegun Agagu epitomized in the discharge of his assigned chores, which he hopes others who find themselves in public office will emulate.
One thing that cannot be overemphasized is the fact that Agagu lived, he loved, and he was amiable to everybody. Conclusively, let me say happy celebration of the memorial, or a befitting memorial of a man that was for all human beings, and that is Olusegun Agagu.
The second memorial lecture in honor of the late Dr. Olusegun Agagu, organized by the Olusegun Agagu Foundation, OAF, was themed Resources, Policies, and Economics. It was originally scheduled to be delivered by His Excellency Mr. Adam Kojo, former Prime Minister of Togo, who was represented by Mr. Cornelius Adam, former Togo Minister of Communications. The former Togolese Prime Minister is a consummate diplomat and politician, Secretary General of the Organization of African Unity, OAU, from 1978 to 1983, Minister of Togo between 1994 to 1996 and 2005 to 2006, and Professor of Political Sciences Department and African Studies at the Paris Sorbonne University in France. Mr. Adam Kojo brought his varied experiences in all these sectors to bear on the way he diagnosed the issue of resources, politics, and economics, which was most eloquently presented by his representative. He congratulated Nigerians for the success of the presidential elections that ushered in the Buhari administration. The prominent opposition leader in Togo advised Nigerian leaders to close ranks and forge a more harmonious and concerted front so that the country can take its rightful place as leaders in Africa. He threw his weight behind Nigeria's candidature for the position of permanent representative at the United Nations Security Council because Nigerians have contributed immensely to global affairs as worthy ambassadors of Africa.
Dr. Olusegun Agagu, a most valuable son of Nigeria and Africa, and whose merit shows in the high-profile works he has left behind, a heritage that we all attending this ceremony are particularly proud of, and pray that it might help structure the orientation of the younger ones, or even become a role model to both the current and the next generation. As a Pan-Africanist and a friend of Nigeria, I could not be insensitive to this page of the history of this great African country that was on the move. Allow me, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, to share with you the congratulation message that I had to send to His Excellency, the newly elected President of Nigeria, President Muhammadu Buhari. The message reads, Your Excellency, dear President Muhammadu Buhari, I am happy to congratulate you after such a brilliant election at the head of one of Africa's most promising countries.
In his own intervention, Professor Ibrahim Gambari, who was a special guest speaker, also enriched the discussions with his rich pedigree as a university lecturer and seasoned administrator. Professor Ibrahim Gambari, a former Foreign Affairs Minister of Nigeria, Nigeria's ambassador, permanent representative to the United Nations, and former Under-Secretary General of the United Nations, described the late Dr. Olusegun Agagu as respected intellectual with enviable pedigree as an administrator and saluted his style of politics without bitterness. Professor Ibrahim Gambari, who is the chairman and founder of the Savannah Center for Diplomacy, Democracy and Development, Abuja, said it's time for Nigeria to brace up to become a nation where all the potentials she is endowed with are properly used to better the lot of its citizens.
So it is a great honor for me to stand before you to be proudly associated with the second memorial lecture in order to consolidate the process of immortalizing the late Dr. Olusegun Agagu, CON, a distinguished academic, an exemplary public servant, a unique politician who actually exemplifies the politics without bitterness, a loving family man, and a fantastic human being.
Professor Ibrahim Gambari, whose areas of specialization include economics, international relations, and political science, is a pioneer chancellor of the Kwara State University. He posited that with a combination of strong leaders and institutions, Nigeria will certainly get her political bearings right.
Because I believe that if properly harnessed, the human and material resources of this country under a visionary, fair, and dedicated leadership are such that Nigeria can become a much more prosperous and a truly just nation. However, to harness our collective aspirations for ourselves and for generations yet to be born, we must make the necessary individual and collective sacrifices. No nation ever becomes great without sacrifice. We're willing to make sacrifice on the individual and community levels and think of ourselves first and foremost as Nigeria.
In their post-lecture interventions, Prince Olagunsoye Oyinlola, Engineer Funsho Kupolokun, former MD of the NNPC, and Evangelist Bamdele Olumilua, under whom late Dr. Olusegun Agagu served as Deputy Governor, sided with the two lecturers' well-researched analysis of the present state of affairs in Nigeria and what to do to quickly correct all the obstacles that have contributed to the stunted growth of things on all fronts in the country.
Segun was a very, very creative, full of drive, and ready to put in everything himself. I trusted him with practically everything. And because he was a geologist, he was the one who got our oil production status to us, to be oil producing, because indeed and in truth, Ondo State is oil producing. But we never took any of the shares in the money they give us. If you are an oil producer, they give you some money over and above what they get to give everybody. So I asked Segun, how can we do it? Now, I know there is oil here. Will you go to the people who are in charge of this thing so you can tell us what to do? He went and they told him that the instrument they used to map where oil is, because there was a dispute between us and Belgium, they call it then, they call that state then. So he went and they said the instrument they are using that they will use to discover to locate the oil properly is not working. So I called him and said, Segun, go and ask how much that instrument will cost. He knows about the tactical equipment that they use to map places and locate them and all that. Then he came to me. And so we thought, what shall we do? So I went back to the people who own the equipment. And we asked them to please help us get the equipment and that whatever it costs, we will pay.
The Olusegun Agagu Foundation indeed deserve a pat on the back for choosing a most intellectually stimulating event to celebrate the second-year anniversary of Dr. Olusegun Agagu's transition. That's indeed a most fitting way to immortalize the memory of an outstanding intellectual whose academic record from his undergraduate days was replete with laurels and prizes. It's worth recalling that the late Dr. Agagu won 3 undergraduate scholarships, namely the Western State Scholarships, the University of Ibadan Scholarship, and the Gulf Oil Company Scholarship, due to his exceptionally remarkable academic brilliance. Sholakpo Hammond ni Agagu's presentation, which was aided by multimedia slides which signposted the bullet points further expatiated upon, was watched by members of the Olusegun Agagu Foundation Boards of Trustees, which include Chief Pius Akinyelure, Mrs. Marie Ekpere, Prince Yemi Adefulu, MFR, and Alhaji Kasim Imam, Mr. Femi Agagu, and Feyi Agagu.
In the last 1 year, the foundation has also added several new cash prizes and school scholarships, not just on their own, but in conjunction with many friends and associates of Dr. Olusegun Agagu who have felt so passionately and have created these endowments and scholarships. In particular, we have not just at the university level, which was the level that we had before, but we now have scholarships at secondary school level and cash prizes and cash awards at the undergraduate level and even at the master's degree level. We have 8 new full scholarships every year, so 8 new students every year will receive a full scholarship to either secondary school or university in the name of Dr. Olusegun Agagu.
The vote of thanks was given by Feyi Agagu, who thanked all for bending over doubly backward to be present at the event, particularly on a Sunday, a day very sacred to Christians. He also solicited for support for the foundation to enable it to fully realize the lofty programs it has marshaled out for itself in the coming years.
Special thank you to His Excellency former Prime Minister, Ellen Kojo, ably represented by Honorable Mr. Kamil Zadia. Thank you very much. Round of applause. We welcome you again to Nigeria. Thank you for the journey. We hope you had a fantastic stay. I assure you next time you intimated to me that you enjoy jazz. I will change the video and we'll have the jazz musician instead of everybody else. Thank you very much again.
The second memorial lecture in honor of Dr. Olusegun Kokumo Agagu, which was compared by Bisi Olatinlo, ended on the note of joyous singing in celebration of the life and times of that great Nigerian who will continue to live in our hearts through his great deeds while alive.
Bàbá kò pẹ́ ta fún wa.